And you can see me okay?
Yep, you look great. Yeah. You can see everything in the background. Yeah. Thank you for being here so much. I feel like I have to, do you prefer Dr. Gretchen? How should I address you properly?
Well, I always say it depends on who's in the room and who's talking and whether or not I like them, right?
We'll go with doctor.
Very much, I'm just Gretchen, but if people get crappy, I do say you can call me Dr. McIntosh, right?
Oh, well, Dr. Gretchen McIntosh, welcome to Security Up Podcast. I am honored to have you here today because you have an organization, or you're part of an organization that I think fills a gap that isn't being addressed, and that's being able to take care of the kids of SOF operators. Of course, the name of the organization is SEALKIDS, but as we talk together today, I think that there's plans to expand that, right?
That is the big vision, right? Is
Nice.
that the services we provide are so necessary, and we have too many of our service members whose families need our help. So yes, growth is on the horizon.
And that's the one thing that a lot of people don't understand when they're looking outside them on the TV shows and the movies. You only see half of the equation, which is the operator, the SEAL running into danger, taking care of the mission. But in reality, what happens is in the real world is that there's a whole support structure that takes care of that individual, that operator on the backside. And part of that is the kids at home. And those individuals, the operator themselves, they bring back all the stressors, all the worry and anxiety, and that bleeds off into the family. And that's when they're home. When they're away, the families struggle as well. And tell us a little bit about the program and how it aims at helping the kids of the operators.
You did such a great job with setup. Thank you. That's a wonderful lead in.
I've had 5 seasons to work on it. Don't look at anything before season 4. It's wow.
Oh, we're just too silly this morning. So, yeah, when we think about our service members, being deployed, handling all of the things that we don't even really know about, right? Even though we're not, quote unquote, in a time of war, right? SOF individuals are still out in the world doing things to protect our freedom, right? And those that have already served are at home dealing with their new missions ahead. And often the children, they're caught up in the whole family lifestyle, just like any other child, right? But what's unique about these SOF military families is that they operate on a tempo that the rest of us just don't understand, right? So whether dad is deployed or at home, there's a lot of things to deal with, like anxiety and depression and wonder, right? But when you also have a child that has a diagnosed learning disability, it creates this what I call an overflowing cup of challenge, right? And for a civilian family where both parents are home and can help support financially and emotionally, it's still a huge struggle. And now we position that challenge within a high tempo military family, and there's just not the appropriate support anywhere, except with SEALKIDS, obviously.
Yeah.
And school systems try their best. They just don't have the resources to attend to everything that the military family needs. And these children require really specialized intervention, often outside of the classroom, in order to continue on their pathway to successful graduation. And that's what we're here for.
Absolutely. And you touch on something that is a growing issue. Trauma-informed care within school systems is just now starting to move. I mean, there's people that have been championing, there have been books, and loud activists have been talking about getting trauma-informed care into schools, getting teachers to understand, because I'm a product of that. I'm a product of broken home, bad parenting, and a school system where teachers didn't give, sorry for the language for those of you at home listening to this, teachers didn't give a fuck. You show up battered, bruised, and with that like low self-esteem, and maybe the kids acting up because that's the only avenue of being able to like defy authority. It's the only place, and they don't have the coping skills or anything. And nowadays, we don't understand how it's different for military kids. We see all the same things, but maybe the kids, they're not experiencing quote unquote abuse. They're experiencing the trauma that comes with not knowing if their dad or mom are coming home, not knowing and having to sit in that ambiguity 6 months at a time, 7 months at a time, 9 months at a time. Maybe they're dealing with the fact that they've seen their parents' friends not come home, and they've seen their friends leave, and they don't understand that. And we don't talk about that aspect. We don't talk about that specific trauma. And that's how many kids are dealing with that. How many children are dealing with this on a day-to-day basis. And that's where your organization comes in to fill that gap. But how do we address this in the school system? How do we start advocating for these changes and understanding? That's a big piece of the pie.
It's a huge piece of the pie. And I want to address something that you said, that these children often see their dad's friends not come home, right? There's that understanding. A couple years ago at one of our events, Medal of Honor recipient Ed Byers talked about his daughter attending more funerals than most adults ever would in their lifetime, right? And that really struck a chord with me. I mean, because of SEAL Kids, I see what these children go through, but man, that just really resonated with me that these children are growing up in a world that, like my children, civilian children, will never have to experience, right? And they are giving so much sacrificially. Us, as a nation, as civilian families, need to do way more to support these military families and to make sure that their children are getting everything that they need and honestly deserve, right? The whole family unit is basically willing to give everything for us. And I think it's sad that we are not just showering these families with as much support as we can possibly give them.
Yeah.
Regarding
it's such a weird, sorry. It's such a weird thing that we idolize, obviously, the guys that go into the fray, the guys that go on deployment, but we don't really have a really well structured support mechanism, even within the military. Sorry to say this, we don't have a great support mechanism for the families. We have a lot of groups that are starting to pop out. There's a lot of MSOF family collaboratives out there championing and really, taking that fight on. But we need more organizations that can sit out or sit down and reach out to the spouses, to the kids, because they're part of the equation too. They're part of the why the individual is healthy and resilient, is able to go, even when they have issues, they still have the family to fall back on. I know I relied on my wife a lot before I got healthy, before I started my own journey. That was the one person always in my corner, sort of keeping me up, pushing me back into the ring. That's my corner person. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. We idolize the fighters, we idolize the operator, but the wives, the spouse at home, and the kids are a huge factor that we got to support and take care of. What are some of the things that your program provides for those kids at home?
Yeah, so what's so unique about SEAL Kids is that over the last 13 years, we have found the impact of supporting them in school creates amazing change, not only for the child, but within the home. So when we can help that child have that taste of success and achievement in the classroom, it changes how the story that they tell about themselves, right? So they're no longer less than or struggling, right? They're a successful student, and that self-confidence and that self-esteem bleeds over into the whole household. This is one less stress now mom has to deal with, one less stress that dad has to think about, and it changes the very fabric then of that child's future, right?
Hmm.
Growing up with some struggles, that it really impacts your adulthood. And so when we can intervene, especially nice and young, and change how that child understands themselves as a learner and
Hmm.
as a person and as a citizen, and growing up being successful and knowing that they are smart and capable, right? That changes everything.
Yeah. And it's funny, the ACE, understanding the role that ACEs play, childhood adversity, those those factors that are just so detrimental to the development as a child, but then play a huge role into an adult's ability to function, to be able to get that nice job, go to college. Like if you have, the higher your score is when you take the ACE worksheet exam, if you tap out and you max it out, it's not a concrete diagnosis that says like you are going to fail at life, but it severely impacts how you function and interact with the rest of the world around you. And then furthermore, what I didn't understand was the connection to your physical health. Like
Mhm.
the way that you are able to help stem that is huge, because now we're looking at, maybe don't have to face the chronic health issues that are associated with that, like asthma, high blood pressure, coronary heart disease. All those things are a factor. It's not a simple just like, okay, we're making them better in school. No, you're helping change the way that that child later on develops as an adult and stems those health issues. This is a huge thing that not a lot of people are still talking about these days. I want to ask you, since the development of the program, what are the metrics that you're seeing? What are the success rates?
Absolutely. So since 2011, when SEAL Kids started, um, and I know we didn't touch on this in this podcast, so I'm going to give just a tiny little spiel
Yeah.
that it was a reaction to the tragedy of Extortion 17. Two children living among the NSW community whose dad was attached to a SEAL
Mm,
team, saw their friends lose their dads, and they wanted to do something specifically to help the children. So SEAL Kids was actually started by children, and it
no
now is a
way.
living monument, right, to not only those lives that were given freely for all of us, in hopes also that we can help the children and the families to help prevent anything further, right? Um, so specifically, we pay for tutoring and therapies not covered by TRICARE. Since 2011, we've served over 1,200 children nationally. So we do help a child wherever they live. And even when they PCS, right, we just follow them along. Even if they are geographically separated from dad while he's active duty, we can help in the hometown where the child lives. We've given away more than $7 million in support of these wonderful children. And since 2018, 100% of the kiddos in our program improve every year. So we know that our program works really well. We know that we remove stress from the home. We know that we help active duty stay active duty. We've had several responses in our surveys that say, I can stay in because SEAL Kids is helping take care of my child. We've seen so many children graduate. Um, we've seen children overcome obstacles like dyslexia and other learning disabilities as they work towards either working after high school or attending college. It's amazing that a couple hours of tutoring it creates immediate impact. So
Yeah.
once the child starts to get a little bit of help, the world changes for them. And so when people, support SEAL Kids, we're really changing the world for a child. And what's better than that?
Yeah. And it's not about, a lot of people think that we have to have these grand solutions and we have to be able to go into this environment and change everything, but that's a small change is what matters. Like providing a tutor for a child and seeing the remarkable improvement in grades and attitude, that's immediate the relief of stress from the wife, from the operator, from the home. And all that stuff continues to snowball for positive growth in both the kids and the spouse, and then the marriage improves. That's one thing that I've noticed in this project and reaching out and seeing the people that are getting the help, getting the support they need. As soon as you kind of like relieve the pressure, the valve that's, of all that stress at home, small things move and create bigger changes, and bigger changes lead to more fruitful relationships, and everything gets a little bit better at home. Like that's impactful. That's huge. And when we're talking about toxic stress, that a lot of people don't understand, like it's not about just taking a breather. It's not just about taking mindfulness classes. No, it's about changing a person's relationship with stress so that they can see that there's hope. Because a lot of times before organizations get involved, what's the first thing people say is like, I don't see hope. I don't see a way out of this. That's toxic stress. When you can't look at the situation and see a positive outcome, then everything starts to snowball out. I want to ask you now, how did you get involved? How did this become your life?
And it very much is my life. I love this organization with every part of my being. So in 2017, I was actually contracted as a consultant to help with some fundraising strategy by members of the SEALKIDS board. And by the end of 2017, they offered me the job to move forward as executive director. So it was quite serendipitous, but literally the best change in my life ever. I was working in Columbus, Ohio, in the arts. My PhD is in cultural policy. So this was a welcome change to serve a community that I've always respected and had a lot of gratitude for. My daddy's a Marine. He served in Vietnam, but he wasn't active duty when I was born. But I did live in a Vietnam veterans household. I did grow up that way. So I fully recognize and understand the scars of war and how that can impact a child's life. I'm lucky, even though it's been touch and go for a lot of years. I mean, my dad's still around, and we have a great relationship now. And so I'm thankful for any opportunity I have working with military families right now to change the course of that child's life regarding academics and reducing stress and just helping the family as a whole, right?
Yeah.
It's always that holistic approach, like you said, to reduce the stress that changes everything for everyone.
Yeah. It's one of the most important things that we don't talk about, because everything in that, again, it's very centric to the operator. How do we keep him engaged in the fight? How do we rehabilitate him physically? Like, what do we need to support him? And it really doesn't make a difference. And I've lived experience and this in the course of this project, seeing individuals, like you can take the individual out of the home, out of the work environment, getting rehabilitated, getting better 100%. But when he gets back home, if his kids are struggling, if his wife's struggling, what do you think is going to happen to all that great progress he made at that treatment center, in that hospital? It's all going to deteriorate back to square one, because we are a unit. And people need to start treating the entire family unit, especially when it comes to transition, when it comes to all these vital things, all these vital chapters in life. You have to see the operator as part of a home team. When we don't view the children, when we don't view the spouse as part of that, we're not really addressing the issues for the operator themselves. Like that's a reality.
And I think what's so unique about the families that I've had the pleasure to work with at SEALKIDS is, man, they are all in. A lot of times in the nonprofit community, when we're dealing with quote unquote an at-risk household, right? So a
Mhm.
single parent home and lack of resources, right? There can be some struggles with finding the excellent partner, right? Um, but that's never an issue at SEAL Kids. What's so amazing about these families is they use all their tutoring hours, right? They want to make sure that their child has every opportunity to succeed. They are always looking for additional resources to help them learn how
Yeah.
to empower their child. They do all of the paperwork that we require, which sometimes is a lot, right? They do, because we have to collect the data, right? So that we
Yeah.
can go for more funding. So they do the pre and post survey, they do the mid-cycle calls and the check-ins. And so we ask quite a bit from our families, and they willingly provide, and they make sure their child, meets with their tutor at the kitchen table so that everybody is succeeding. And I think that's often the most thrilling part to me is we have partners in these families that are just as invested in their children as we are. Obviously more because they're their kids, but it's it's more of a rarity, I think, than people in the nonprofit community want to talk about, right?
Yeah.
But these families are just phenomenal and are fighting just as hard for their family as they are for all of us. And so we really need to be standing with them in all the ways that we can.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that when we're not in a time of war, even though, I mean, technically, even though we don't declare it, we are very much engaged. But that's another episode. But it's easy to forget about the military family and military kids specifically right now because we're not in Afghanistan, we're not in Iraq, but the need's still there. Um, how have you guys been able to pivot in moving towards gathering more support? Are you finding it a little bit more difficult now, or is it still like steady going, gathering support for this nonprofit?
So, the nonprofit giving cycle is always an ebb and flow, let's call it, right? And over the past, we've been very grateful and blessed to be supported by organizations like Navy SEAL Foundation and SEAL Family
Mhm.
Foundation. But as SEAL Kids ages, foundation funding is not as prevalent as it once was. And so we spend a lot of time having smaller events and raising every dollar we can to continue to support the children in our programs. Um, this year, we are definitely looking for more support and more friends to help us on this endeavor as we continue to support the SEAL families in our programs and as we look to expand our services to all SOF eventually. I mean, we would love to do it a whole lot sooner than later, right? But that
Yeah.
requires significant financial support. So, in the short term, we're still focusing on Naval Special Warfare, but the need is really great out there. When we look at the fact that less than 1% of the U.S. population serves, right? And that
Yeah.
includes reserves and National Guard. So if you take those out, it's actually less than 0.5%, right? That's a really small group holding up the whole country. And then when we look at SOF, right, and that they're on more than 90% of all military actions, right? And then we look at, so that's a smaller group, still holding up a large amount of all of us. And then we think about our target population, which is children with diagnosed learning disabilities, right? We know that's about 15% of all K 12 students. It's even a little bit more of a narrow focus. But when we lift up small groups, like you mentioned before, right? Attending to the small things has huge ripple effects. What we know about the special education system in public schools is that
Mhm.
it is currently struggling. There's not enough special educators. There's not enough resources. And so all children with learning disabilities are having issues. Children from SOF families and military families with learning disabilities are having even greater issues because of moving schools. You know, they'll move somewhere between 6 and 9 times before they
Yeah.
graduate high school, right? And that IEP often does not transfer. Partners in Promise did this amazing survey where they found that military children can wait as long as 23 months to receive appropriate special education services in schools.
Oh,
It's time to
holy
PCS again,
yeah.
right? So by
Wow.
helping this smaller group, right? If we think about it in terms of size, right? This uh, group of SOF, or even right now, just Naval Special Warfare kiddos with learning disabilities, if we can help them and pave the way to what real change looks like, that will have an effect nationally.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, we want to pay for more advocacy. We want to pay for more legal support to help the school provide exactly what they're federally mandated to provide, so that we are just giving the extra, right? The above. But in the current situation, we're paying for stuff that the school system just doesn't have the resources to provide right now. So
Yeah.
it's a big problem.
Yeah. You guys are holding it down for the entire state and federal support system.
Yes, and in the short term, that's very expensive.
Yeah,
Right?
that's
Thankfully, we have a system of really fantastic tutors, and I do want to point out that it's not homework help. We are
yeah.
dealing with foundation gaps and large steps in understanding, as well as dealing with the specific challenges a child has regarding a learning disability. So it's not just like, you know, we're helping Timmy do his times tables, right? We're right. For anyone that doesn't know, I do always like to, you know, push out that active duty, the DoD pays for online Zoom tutoring at tutor.com, and golly gee, use that resource, right? But that's for your average student who just needs
Mhm.
a little bit of homework help, right? When we talk about high intensity tutoring and addressing learning disabilities, that's us.
Yeah. And going back to the learning disabilities, how many of your program participants are dealing with ADHD? And that is like one of the things that is popping up on the radar, because on the backside of it, when we're leaving the service, a vast majority of operators right now are getting diagnosed with ADHD. And there has the fact that it's at home already, and then the operator doesn't even know he has it, and then he's like, hey, by the way, you have ADHD, here's your medication. And like, and then we're going home, and then it's no wonder the kids at home are dealing with it.
Absolutely. So at SEALKIDS, the majority of the children we serve have either ADHD or dyslexia or
Hmm.
that co-presentation, right? And we know that ADHD and dyslexia both are genetic, right? At about a 50% rate or so. So we can make assumptions
Yeah.
that, you know, that comes from one of the parents or both, right? So yes, ADHD is very prevalent in the children we serve, but I want to be clear, the learning disabilities that we attend to are not more prevalent in
Yeah.
Naval Special Warfare. You know, we align pretty significantly with the standard 15% across K-12. And we're not even reaching all of the kiddos in Naval Special Warfare that we need to because of funding, right?
Yeah.
So we would love to help even more children on their path to graduation, but we need more friends to help in a big way. And they
And-
can learn more about our programs at sealkids.org and donate there.
oh yeah, and it will be on the episode description when this episode hits. So if
That's
you want to pause and
amazing.
look at the technology these days. But how about college rate? What are you guys tracking? What percentage of your kiddos are successfully getting into college?
So we don't track how many of our kiddos get into college. What we focus on is getting them to graduation, and so that
Mhm.
they are able to apply to whatever it is they
Wherever,
want to
yeah,
do with their life, right? And some of our kiddos are especially high need and probably won't go to college. They, might attend a junior college, or they might work in their community and serve their community that way. Um, Not everyone's on a pathway to college,
yeah.
and I won't even go into my spiel about how many skilled labor jobs are left open every year, right?
No, please do, because
Right? Like
it's
we need electricians and masons for goodness sakes, right?
and
Carpenters.
it's
Yeah.
and the reason I ask is because that's a metric that people obviously want to like track and be able to like to throw, but not to deter the actual truth, which is we have this hyper focus on going to college. We have a hyper
Uh-huh.
focus on getting accepted and going and taking out a loan for $120,000 and then hoping that the government pays for it at the end. But the reality is, I'm a product of military service. I got my associates while I was in Afghanistan. I
Mhm.
am using my benefits right now to pay for school because
Mhm.
I have an impossible dream that I won't divulge to anybody until I accomplish it. It's neither here nor there. But it was after my profession. It was after I went out. And a vast majority of my friends that stayed in the civilian world that I still keep in touch with today, they didn't have the typical go to college, take on a whole bunch of debt lifestyle.
Mhm.
They went out there and they got a trade and they're highly successful and they're able to do what I'm doing right now, which is pivot into something else. Okay, I did
Mhm.
this for my entire, 20, 30 years. Now I want to try something new, but I've saved and I budgeted and now I can do that. And I can start this business. And I can do, this other endeavor that I've been passionate about. And we don't talk about that. We don't put the importance of being able to look at life through a lens of like not seeing college as the only option. And it's exhausting to see that what our college system has become because it's now just a breeding ground for a lot of protesting.
I went through the university system. I mean, we've talked about this before. I went back to school as an adult. I was fortunate while my children were young to stay home, and I did things like clean houses and work retail, right? And
Yeah.
then as my children aged, that I went back to college and finished my undergrad. I was like 35, right? And finished my PhD at 40. And so it was a different experience
Yeah.
than, the traditional pathway. And I'm still a huge proponent of learning in any capacity, right? And um, it's unfortunate that skilled trades are so undervalued um, by large groups because that's what builds America,
Yeah.
right? Like, um, it's catastrophic that we don't have enough people in the labor force to attend to our infrastructure. So learning takes all kinds of forms. College is not the only pathway.
Yeah. It's, growing up, understanding how to do things. I never understood that other people didn't have that. You only know what you know and you experience life from your frame of reference. And meeting people that don't know how to do just the bare minimum within their own home, it always makes me like just kind of like look and be like, wow, like you don't know how to do your own basic plumbing, like you don't know your own electrical, like and we're very much in I I think it'll eventually figure itself out. People are understanding that maybe they can become a journeyman, maybe that they can
Mhm.
become, a skilled professional. I'm starting to see a little bit of that, but
Mhm.
I hate to wake up one day and see the world through the lens of, what's that name of that movie? Idiocracy, where we just lost our ability to function as a society.
Yeah, God bless Mike Rowe and all the work he's done to try and,
Yeah,
push forward skilled trade jobs. That's definitely a hole that needs filled in a big way. It
yeah,
was a couple of years ago, it was like what, 600,000 skilled trade jobs went unfilled? What?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's what we. So I look at, and people have done the research. They see how many young kids are looking at what's attractive, which is social media, which is being an influencer, being somebody
Mhm.
that doesn't work with their hands, which is crazy. Like it's you should strive to look for things that make you a contributing member of society. Like,
Well, it's a huge pride in your work, whatever that is,
yeah,
right? And being able to create something, whether it's so I love to do plumbing. That's my favorite. Whether
get out of here.
I will say, man, if this whole thing didn't work out, I want to be a union pipe fitter, right? Like be connecting,
Gretchen, we just went to a full. We just went to a whole. All right, we're going to explore this now. Where did this love of plumbing come from? Because let
I
me tell
don't
you,
know, it's like a puzzle. It's
yeah,
fascinating, and you get to play with the torches and stuff. Like this is way off, but
no,
it's there's pride in your work when you can be successful and you can create something, right?
yeah,
And that's what SEAL Kids strives to do for the children we serve and these families is give them something that they can be proud of, and
yeah,
that addresses so many things in the home because we can help that children tell that story that they
yeah,
are successful and valuable, right? Just as if I, put a new faucet in and in my sink, right? Like
yeah,
it's it's something I know is valuable and I can be proud of, and that creates a ripple effect that is positive and reduces stress and helps me get on with my day and whatever I have to tackle. And when a mother sees that her child is succeeding, that helps her succeed. And when dad sees that mom and child at home are succeeding, that helps him succeed, right? It's this wonderful foundational intervention that touches everybody.
yeah. Do you guys do any sort of retreats or like summer programs?
And we are laser focused. We pay for the extra intervention for academics, and the therapy is not covered by TRICARE, like
That's
dyslexia
awesome.
therapy and vision therapy. We have more families than we can serve that need our help. They need more hours than we can give. And so that is the focus, and it remains the focus. And we know the program is so stellar that we charge on with that laser focused mission.
Yeah, and that's good. If you had to sort of pontificate and dream about the expansion of the program, what are some things that you guys are looking forward to when the funding is available, when you can grow and scale appropriately? Where are some things that SEAL Kids is looking to venture off into?
hmm Well, we're really looking to become a really great accountability partner for the school systems in which our
Ooh,
children attend. I think there is a large place for us to take a peek at some of those IEPs and maybe encourage the school to attend to some of those goals a little bit better. And if they can't attend to them, we can certainly provide the personnel to make sure that the child is getting everything they need educationally. So there's space for advocacy, there's space for legal support, and there's space for individualized tutors that attend specifically to the learning disability. Um, and then eventually, there's all kinds of wonderful things. We know children with autism respond really well to music therapy, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, but that's like, first we got to get all these kiddos handled, right? Academically, right? And then there's things to explore to attend to the rest, or the whole child as they develop, right?
Yeah.
But in the short, sorry.
It's good to have that understanding of like, okay, this is our core mission. This is what we're going to focus on, because that's it's the bread and butter. That's what's needed right now. And it's obviously the proof's in the pudding. The individuals keep referring and more kids keep coming. What has the SEAL community's reaction been? Like, do you guys have a good, like, solid representation through all the different platoons and everybody just back in the program?
Yeah, we have great penetration into pretty much every command. Absolutely. Um, and we get great feedback from our SEAL Kids parents about how vital it is for their service that we continue to support their child. And how magnificent it is that our service doesn't get cut off when they transition out, right?
Yeah.
So about 20 to 25% of the kiddos we serve are from veteran families. And, veteran families really experience a loss of resources
Oh,
when they
yeah.
transition out,
Yeah.
but we're still here for them.
Which is great. Like, that's the one thing that a lot of people don't understand. When you're in a close knit community, it's great. You have access to so much. But the moment you ETS or you retire, like, you're done. You pack your things and you move out. And then you don't have access to the same resources. You're not going to the same wonderful clinics that are only for you and your community. You're now your BA. Now you're struggling for your being able to provide that same resource for the kids without some sort of like, oh wait, you have to transition out and then we'll recontact you in a couple of weeks. Like, no, this continues. This is ongoing. You will have the support. That's magnificent. That is something that is vital to the community, because it gives them that feeling of like, okay, our kids still matter. Somebody still cares. Like, they're still wanting to support them in this next phase of our lives.
And I think there's a false narrative about when you talk about support, even of active duty military.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a really false narrative of what that support looks like. I mean, I think that there's starting to be a little bit more understanding. And you can look up a Navy SEAL's salary online, and you'll see that,
Yep.
if you think about a family of 4, right? That's not cutting it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And because of how transitory their life is, right, as far as moving often, and that military families have more children than civilian families, and they have them younger, and thank goodness, right? Because it's wonderful that military families are having more children, but mom's going to be at home because
Yep.
she doesn't necessarily have the opportunity to work as much as if her husband was coming home at 5 o'clock, right?
Yep.
So we're talking about a single parent household. There's just not enough financial resources for them
Yep.
to have everything they deserve to have. Because my goodness, again, it's less than 0.5% of the population that is serving us, right? And we are all walking around enjoying this wonderful life. And honestly, before I started at SEAL Kids, I had no concept of that side of the world, right? I had no understanding of
Yeah.
what an active duty family went through in this day and age. None. And even veteran families, my mom was home when I was growing up, so at least there was a buffer, within our family. But we just need to do more. Obviously we're having a discussion about SEAL Kids and the importance of our programs, but by golly,
Mm-hmm.
any listener, if they are just moved to do more for our military families, that's really my point, because we're all kind of puzzle pieces, right?
Yeah.
All of the veteran and military service organizations, we're all attending to a specific problem or a niche within the community. And the more support we can get for everyone to work together collaboratively, wow, we are really going to make a difference.
Yeah. We have a weird understanding of what it's like to be a service member and bring a family and raise a family in this environment. People don't understand. I think when I talk to civilian friends, they just envision us all living in barracks. They just envision us having everything that we needed, and the government provides everything, and that can be further from from the truth. Right now, and I'm lucky to still live in the same area where I served here in Northwest Florida. 7th Special Forces Group still doesn't have a child care facility. It doesn't. Hasn't had one since it became an institute, since it came here into Florida in 2011. Now, to a lot of people at home, what does that mean? Well, I'll break it down for you. That means that all the individuals within 7th Special Forces Group that have children, they don't have a primary daycare facility. They can't go to Eglin Air Force Base and use their child care facility because there's a wait list about 4 to 5 months or 6 months long, however it is. And there isn't one at Hurlburt and there isn't one at Duke Field that they can use. So that means that their kids, their primary care comes from either the spouse or a babysitter, or they don't get a stipend from the government to pay for it. It comes out of pocket.
Mm-hmm.
And if they can't find a sitter, and if something happens where the wife has to go to the hospital or take care of one of the other kids, guess what happens with Junior? Junior comes to work, to the team room, and he hangs out with all 12 of his uncles. And they sit there and they enjoy a great day of having to hear team room banter in both English and in Spanish. And yeah, that's fun. And it's silly and it's great. And let me tell you something. It was one of the most rewarding things when team members brought their kids, especially not having kids on your own, not understanding the complexities of having to raise kids and being like, holy cow, you got to keep these things alive. Like, oh my gosh. Like, and it's fun when it's temporary, when it's, 1 or 2 days. But imagine the stress of having to worry about how you're going to take care of your kids and how you're going to provide childcare your entire life in the military. It's not easy, and I get it. Childcare is expensive everywhere you go, but at least you have the option in the civilian world. Some companies actually give you a stipend for it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get that from the military. Wow, I got fireworks from that. That's awesome. That will be live on the YouTube video. But you don't get that. And we need to be able to have the discussion of the burden that we take on when we enlist and we carry on a military lifestyle. Our military families need support. They need representation. They need people that are willing to fight for them and say, hey, guess what? Eglin Air Force Base and 7th Special Forces Group, here's the money for a child care facility for these special operators. They deserve it. You're willing to send them on back-to-back deployments. You're willing to constantly put them in stress, but you're not willing to fight for them to have that child care center. Do better. Do better. Our kids deserve more. Our families deserve more. And if it wasn't for organizations like SEALKIDS raising that banner and doing that fight, we wouldn't have the representation. And I hope and pray that you guys continue to grow so you can take on more work, so you can take on more resources and be able to advocate for everybody, because our kids, and let's put it this way, we want to talk about retention, we want to talk about recruitment. Where do our majority of our service members come from?
Military families.
Exactly. So if you raise kids in an environment where they see their parents weren't getting the support, and we already see that the metrics are already coming in, fewer and fewer military kids are wanting to serve. And I'll tell you why. Because they saw the struggles their dad and moms went through. They saw the pain that they went through. They couldn't make ends meet. They couldn't afford that extra care. They couldn't afford childcare. They couldn't afford all these things. Now that kid's going to grow up and realize, yeah, his dad was proud and he enjoyed his service, but his dad's probably going to sit him down and say, hey, guess what, Junior? I want you to do better. I want you to strive for more. I don't want you to go become a SEAL. I don't want you to become a Ranger. I don't want you to be a Green Beret, a JTAC, or a TAC-P. I don't want you to do any of that. I want you to go make your own business. I want you to do something better. And we're losing those kids. We're losing those individuals that know what it's like and probably be the best service member. And all we have to do is just put a little bit more effort into providing support for our kids and our families and our spouses. So that's another one too.
And
The
I want
best
to be,
transition. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah. As you're talking about, thinking about as, like as civilian families, think about what it means to serve as a military family and all the resources that aren't there. I want to be clear. I have never heard one of my families complain about lack, right, of what they have access to or anything. The only thing that we hear is, my child needs more help.
Yep.
I want to be clear with listeners that there are not military families standing there with a handout, with their hand out, right? Because I've never had that experience. I've only had the experience that they are proud to serve and they will willingly do it over and over and over again, even though these gaps exist, right?
Yeah.
And I think that is, such a definition of the warrior mindset, is that even in the more than, I don't even want to know about the, okay, it's a poop show, right? What they're living in, right? It is.
You can swear. You can swear on this podcast.
Let's just have me anyways. Like, it is unsatisfactory conditions
There you go.
regarding all kinds of things, right?
Yeah.
And yet they show up every day and they do it willingly and they would do it again and again and again. And they have signed up to give their life for all of us, right? It is the least that we can do to support them fully so that they can concentrate on their mission ahead, whether that is abroad or that is after they come home and they've got work to do, right? Yeah. And so SEAL Kids stands with these families, and we look forward to standing with even more families, because you know what? The more data we have about what's going on in school systems, the louder we can shout with policymakers to be like, this needs to be attended to.
Yeah. And I won't even begin to wonder how bad our school systems are. I mean, just from what I see on social media is enough to say, wow, like maybe everybody should be sending their kids to private schools.
Well, that's what I would say. There's these really great structures in the K-12 system to attend to issues, but more, federal mandates are not backed by federal dollars, right? So often the ask is of the local school district to provide resources that they don't have, right? So it's this huge problem, but we can help in a small way with a targeted amount of people who are already doing an enormous amount that benefits our lives in general, right? But there's more work to be done, just to get things fixed little by little, baby steps, right?
Yeah.
And there are some states who are doing it really well. There are states like Georgia has schools specifically for dyslexia. So yes, that's a private school, right? But I have full belief that, public schools are learning. In Ohio, there's dyslexia screening very early on. So some states are moving forward with great policy change. But in the short term, Timmy is failing third grade, right? So while policy change is happening and it's moving forward, we still have to make sure that the one child who is struggling right now and who does not have the right support right now, and whose dad is not home because he's training to serve, to do something we're probably not going to know about, right?
Yeah.
And that child is one of a few siblings. And we also know, if there's a learning disability in the home with one child, there's probably more than one child with a learning disability in that home, right? So mom's got a lot on her plate, and she needs to be able to rely on an organization like SEAL Kids that's going to help Timmy not fail third grade in this moment while policy change is happening. Yeah, right now. Because he only gets to go to third grade once, or should, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of us.
No. Making a child repeat a grade is a whole nother. We could have a whole podcast on that, right? Like,
how else are we going to get Marines, Gretchen? How else?
Daddy's a Marine. Watch it.
Feel like I'm going to have a lot of Raiders in my comment section. A lot of Marines coming after me. We're keeping that in.
You're a brave soul.
Hey, I joke because I'm part of the community and the friendships are there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh man.
Oh my gosh, that's really funny.
Yeah, it's so true though. We have to be able to provide support right now in hopes of when things change down the road, because nothing moves fast at the levels of government. Nothing, whether it's state or federal, nothing works fast. And that's okay, because we have great organizations like SEAL Kids that are working to provide the support right now in the homes where we need it most. Again, Gretchen, how can we get in touch with SEAL Kids if we need support? If we're part of the SEAL community and we want to get support for our kids, how can we get in touch with you guys?
Absolutely. That's such a great question, because our grant application window is getting ready to open June 1. So if you go to sealkids.org and click on request help, you can see where the grant application will be, and it'll be open June 1 through June 30th. If you have questions in the meantime, you can reach out to Alma Fowler. She's our program specialist, and she can answer any questions about the application process. If you're active duty, we do require a statement of service from your command. If you're a veteran, we do require a DD 214 to prove that you served. And then we support active duty and veteran SEAL SWIC, and then active duty support personnel attached to an NSW command. And so that's just sealkids.org, request help. And then, of course, if anyone's willing to donate, same place, sealkids.org, click the donate button.
Awesome. I've got everything right up. I'll put all of this information will be in the episode description of this podcast. So please go there after the podcast. Just press pause. We'll wait. Go read it. Okay. Now you read it. Go to sealkids.org. And if you're a SEAL or a member of the SEAL community involved, affiliated, apply. Help your kids get better at school. We need it. We need everybody. It's all hands on deck approach to take care of your kids. Now, if you don't have kids, you want to get involved, the same thing. Go to sealkids.org and donate some money. Every little bit helps. I know from helping and talking to all sorts of nonprofits, every little bit helps. Whether you can provide $1 here, think of it as going back to church. The offering plate is coming around. Don't be the person that's looking anxious, trying to look away from the offering plate. Dig into your pocket. Give something today. Help SEAL Kids meet their goals and help them grow and scale up, because once they get bigger, they can provide support to all SOF community members, and then we all win. So, Gretchen, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for what you're doing. Do you mind if people reach out to you on LinkedIn or any of your social media? Oh, also social media handles for your company.
Absolutely. It's all SEAL Kids. So we're SEAL Kids on Instagram. We're SEAL Kids on Facebook. We're SEAL Kids on LinkedIn. We're SEAL Kids on Twitter. And then my email address is on the website. Please connect with me on LinkedIn. The more friends we have, the more people we can serve. And I want to reiterate what you said, like literally every dollar helps. An hour of tutoring is on average $75. We have these magnificent monthly donors at like that $25 a month mark. By the end of the year, they have paid for a month of tutoring on their own, right? Imagine if we had 100,000 of those people at $25 a month. The world would change.
Heck yeah. Let's make it happen, people. Get up there today to SEALKIDS.org and start donating. And again, thank you all for listening. Thank you for being here. And I hope to see you all next time. Till then, take care. Be nice to each other, especially Marines.